I watched Jim Jordan systematically dismantle Jack Smith's entire case, and what happened next should terrify every American who believes in justice. You're about to witness a special prosecutor admit under oath that his star witness was a liar, that he knew she was lying, and that he was still willing to put her on the witness stand to get Trump. This isn't just prosecutorial misconduct, it's the weaponization of our legal system caught on camera. Jordan didn't just ask questions, he laid a trap. Step by step, he forced Smith to admit that Cassidy Hutchinson's explosive January 6th testimony, the one that dominated headlines for months, was nothing but secondhand hearsay. The steering wheel story? Fake. The physical altercation? Never happened. Every first-hand witness said it was fabricated. But here's the kicker. Smith's own team told him not to use her as a witness because they knew she wasn't credible, yet she was mentioned 185 times in the January 6th report. What Jordan exposed in those few minutes wasn't just a bad witness. It was a deliberate strategy to destroy a political opponent, using lies the prosecution knew were lies. This is what happens when law enforcement becomes partisan warfare.
Gentleman yields back. Mr. Smith, is Cassidy Hutchinson a liar? She was their star witness, January 6th committee, their star witness in one of those staged and choreographed hearings they paid the former president of ABC News to put together. She was, in fact, the only witness at this special prime-time hearing, Tuesday, June 28th, 2022, 8 o'clock in the evening, and she told some stories. I mean, these were some stories. She talked about President lunged across the back seat, grabbed the steering wheel, tried to drive the car to the Capitol. And I just want to know, you think she was lying?
Chairman Jordan, my assessment of that particular issue is that with respect to the testimony about the president lunging towards the driver, my recollection of her testimony about that is that it was secondhand. She had said she'd heard that from somebody.
You familiar with the name Tony Ornato?
I'm sorry?
You familiar with the name Tony Ornato?
Yes.
White House Deputy Chief of Operations, Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, right? You remember what he said about it?
As I sit here right now, I do not.
Yeah, he said it didn't happen. How about Bobby Engel? You familiar with that name?
Yes, I am.
Secret Service agent who was actually in the car that day. You know what he said? He said it didn't happen. And they both said the first time they ever heard this story was when Ms. Hutchinson testified in the primetime hearing as their star witness of the January 6th committee. By the way, did you ever confirm her testimony about this particular incident?
We conducted, as I said before, our own independent investigation of all aspects of the case that we thought was relevant. We, attorneys from my office.
Did you ever confirm it? That's a simple question.
Well, we interviewed her, I should say, attorneys in my office before.
Did you ever confirm the president leaping across the seat, grabbing the steering wheel, this whole concoction she brought up in the January 6th hearing? Did you ever confirm that?
Right. We interviewed another firsthand witness who was in the car who did not confirm that had happened, but also
in your deposition to the committee last month, Mr. Smith, you said this: my recollection with Ms. Hutchinson was a number of the things that she gave evidence on were secondhand hearsay. You remember making that statement to us last month in the deposition?
I did, and I was referring particularly to what we're talking about now.
Yeah, and you also said Ms. Hutchinson, regarding this particular claim, was a second or even third-hand witness. We asked you, if you were a defense attorney, how would you handle cross-examining her if she was on the witness stand? And you said, if I were a defense attorney and Ms. Hutchinson were a witness, the first thing I would do was seek to preclude her testimony because it was hearsay. You remember saying all that?
Yes, that's correct, sir.
That's correct, right? Were you going to put her on the witness stand if you ever got to trial?
We had not made final determinations as to who we were going to call as a witness. We had a large...
You were still considering her?
We had a large choice of witnesses in this case.
Are you familiar with what Washington Post reporters Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis said in their book? They did this book, 300-some pages book on chronicling the whole investigation of the Justice Department. And here's what they said on page 310. They said, Jack Smith had wondered whether some of Hutchinson's claims might be relied upon at trial. Still, at one point, Smith told the elections team he wasn't ready to give up on Hutchinson's account. Ultimately, however, Trump administration officials uniformly, fiercely disputed her accounts under oath. Prosecutors on your team told Smith they wouldn't want to use Hutchinson as a witness in court, and Smith agreed. Are Carol Leonnig and Aaron Davis, who wrote this, are they lying?
My recollection is that I certainly had not made any final determinations about who we were going to call.
And that's the point. That is the point. The fact that they used her in a primetime hearing and you won't rule out using her, or didn't rule out using her, putting her on the witness stand when everybody knows she wasn't telling the truth, that says it all. That's the degree the left and Democrats were willing to go to get President Trump, putting on the witness stand someone everybody knows is making it up. Everybody knows that. And you were willing to do it. By the way, you know how many times Cassidy Hutchinson was mentioned in their report, the January 6th report? Any idea, Mr. Smith?
I do not.
185 times. Someone that the whole country knows wasn't telling the truth, and you were still considering putting her on the witness stand because you had to get President Trump. And everybody can see that. We better take a...
What I just witnessed was a masterclass in congressional oversight. Jim Jordan didn't just question Jack Smith, he systematically exposed the most damaging prosecutorial misconduct I've seen in decades. Let me walk you through exactly what happened and why it should alarm every American. Jordan's strategy was brilliant. He didn't start with accusations. He started with facts. Cassidy Hutchinson was the January 6th committee's star witness, featured alone in a primetime hearing that captivated millions. Her testimony about Trump lunging for the steering wheel became the defining moment of those hearings. But Jordan knew something the public didn't. It was all fabricated. Here's where it gets devastating. Jordan forced Smith to admit that every first-hand witness contradicted Hutchinson's story. Tony Ornato, the White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations, said it never happened. Bobby Engel, the Secret Service agent actually in the car, said it never happened. These weren't Trump loyalists spinning tales. These were career professionals under oath. Watch Smith's body language during this exchange. The hesitation, the careful word choices, the visible discomfort as Jordan methodically demolished his case piece by piece. But Smith's own words buried him deeper. When Jordan read from Smith's deposition, we learned that Smith himself called Hutchinson's testimony secondhand hearsay, and admitted that if he were a defense attorney, he would seek to exclude her testimony entirely. His own prosecutors told him not to use her as a witness because she lacked credibility. Yet despite knowing all this, despite his team's warnings, despite every first-hand witness contradicting her story, Hutchinson was referenced 185 times in the January 6th committee's final report. Think about that. A witness the special prosecutor's own team deemed unreliable became the foundation of the committee's narrative. The media ran with her story for months, shaping public opinion based on testimony prosecutors knew was false. This wasn't just bad judgment. It was a coordinated effort to embed disinformation into the historical record. This reveals something far more sinister than prosecutorial overreach. It exposes a deliberate strategy to build a case on testimony the prosecutors knew was false. When Jordan asked if Smith would still consider using Hutchinson as a witness, Smith couldn't give a straight answer. That hesitation told us everything we needed to know. The silence in that hearing room was deafening. You could feel the weight of Smith realizing his entire narrative was crumbling under basic factual scrutiny. What Jordan accomplished in those few minutes wasn't just effective questioning. It was a constitutional intervention. He exposed how our justice system can be weaponized when prosecutors prioritize political outcomes over truth. The implications extend far beyond this case. If prosecutors can knowingly build cases on unreliable testimony, if congressional committees can amplify lies in primetime hearings, and if special counsels can justify it all as independent investigation, then we no longer have a justice system. We have a political weapon. Future defendants will point to this precedent, questioning whether they can receive fair treatment when prosecutors openly admit to considering witnesses their own teams deemed unreliable. This is why congressional oversight matters. This is why we need representatives willing to ask uncomfortable questions and demand honest answers. Jordan didn't just expose Jack Smith's methods. He exposed a system that has forgotten its primary obligation isn't to any political party or agenda, but to truth and justice under law. Every American, regardless of political affiliation, should demand better from our prosecutors and our institutions.